coffin dancer in the streets, genocider in the seats, if you know what I mean. I love this character to death. Muteba Gizenga, the genocider, is a Congolese mercenary who always has a smile on his face. Although blind, Muteba has extreme senses with a fashion sense and a sex drive to match. He is one of the few fighters to have killed one of their opponents during the Annihilation tournament, and has garnered street clout from career wrestlers and the infamous Curry clan. Is Muteba worthy of such reputability, or is he not? Let's find out. During his conception, the artist Daromeon drew up a Russian mercenary whose main fighting style was Sistema, but Sandrovich found it boring, and Daromeon drew up this hodgepodge of different ideas. Thus, Muteba Gizenga was born. Nothing is known of his younger years, but before taking part in the Kengen Association, Muteba was a mercenary of much renown who had been hired throughout the African and Asian continent for his services. In Sierra Leone, on the west coast of Africa, he was hired by the government to put down an armed rebellion, and was successful in doing so unarmed. In another region of Africa, Muteba was hired as a bodyguard and came to blows against Kuri Horeo, who was hired to assassinate his quarry. Horeo was only successful because his target had run out of funds to keep the mercenary around. In Malaysia, he worked alongside the Falcon Albert Lee to dispose whomever they were assigned. Although very successful, Muteba lost his vision during one of these jobs. Yet, through these grim tasks, Muteba Gizenga ultimately made contact with Toga Tomari. To prove his worth, Toga Tomari had Muteba Gizenga retrieve her military goods from a ship held hostage by Somalian pirates. Muteba showed off his drip first, then jumped down Captain America style, and murdered everyone on board with his bare hands. This was enough convincing needed for Toga Tomari to enlist Muteba Gizenga as Iwami Heavy Industries representative fighter for the Kengen Annihilation tournament. During the voyage to Ganru Island, Muteba kept to himself and didn't have any conflicts with any ambitious usurpers. Just kidding. Muteba pleasured his harem throughout both the voyage and tournament without any exhaustion. Speaking of the tournament, although Muteba Gizenga wasn't used to facing martial artists, he quickly adapted to the situation and racked up victories against Miguro Masaki and Sekabayashi-jin. However, Muteba surrendered in the quarterfinals due to career-ending injuries resulting from Wakatsuki's blast core. Following Muteba's explosion into the underground fighting scene, Iwami Heavy Industries was elevated as a firm clique within the Kengen Association. After departing from Iwami Heavy Industries, Muteba returned back into the realms of the underworld, never to be seen again. However, Muteba Gizenga returned in Kengen Omega after receiving a call from Toga Tomari. Her clique faced a severe emergency after SJPW ceded from the Kengen vs Purgatory tournament. To save face within the Kengen Association, Toga called Muteba to possibly enlist him for the tournament. During the tournament itself, Muteba wasn't present on the side of Team Kengen, and instead made contact with Julius Rinhold, stating that Purgatory rules are far too constricting for him, and Julius would do a far better job. Thus, he entered the tournament as a spectator. Yet, his position would change after Gaoriyuki killed Nidon Monkbot in the 5th round of the tournament. This tragedy prompted Toyoda Idemitsu to hire Muteba Gizenga for yet another job, of which we will surely find out later. Muteba Gizenga's techniques, namely the eye poke and the heart jab, are techniques which ensure Muteba's victory. The eye poke is pretty self-explanatory, whereas the heart jab is a technique which bypasses skin, muscle, and bones to deliver a small impact to his opponent's heart, causing certain incapacitation or death. On their own, these techniques rely on the element of surprise and aren't as effective if they are known. But Muteba can chain these techniques together, such as launching an eye poke as a fake into the heart jab, or launching the heart jab as a fake into the eye poke. This process eliminates this weakness and enables these techniques to be used repeatedly after they have been sewn. This prolongs Muteba's surprise indefinitely. Although Muteba Gizenga isn't a grappler, he has defeated many grappling specialists in the series. He has escaped submission holds from people as strong as Wakatsuki Takeshi by striking his acupuncture points, and has tanked ruthless throws from both Sekabayashi-jun and Meguro Masaki. During the course of the Annihilation Tournament, Muteba has grown accustomed to this style of combat and knows just how to handle them. Due to his blindness, Muteba had to rely on his sense of smell, hearing, and touch to evaluate his surroundings. This worked out too well because Muteba now has complete 360-degree awareness and can see things better than the average human being. Although fighters have tried to exploit his senses, they have been to no avail. Meguro Masaki gouged out his eyes, which did little anyways, and Sekabayashi ruptured his ears, damaging his hearing for the rest of the tournament. Yet this too didn't matter because he could still sense his environment with his nose. This would give Wakatsuki Takeshi an advantage in this fight because he would only need to target his sense of smell to completely shut him out. Yet before the match, Toga Tomari implanted her prototype eye replacements into Muteba's empty sockets, fully restoring his vision and giving him infrared sensing. So, Muteba Gizenga's senses at this point are nothing but an absolute strength. Now, let's move on to his weaknesses. As a mercenary, Muteba can get extremely stressful jobs done, but if he senses a legitimate threat to his survival or faces damages that would end his way of life, he will abandon post and surrender. Muteba will not fight to the bitter end like most combatants in the series and places his survival above all else. Muteba has done well against opponents who rely on brute force, and as a master of surprise, he consistently outwits his opponents. Yet, in terms of blitz strategies, Muteba would be able to perceive how fast his opponents are going, but could do little in the way of harming them, because not only do they have the initiative, they have lots of security when at their peak speed. The only thing Muteba could do is to avoid their rushes and exhaust them. This is a problem due to his next weakness. As a mercenary, it is important to not only take your cake and eat it, but to maintain strength and fitness. Thus, Muteba has an incredibly imposing frame and musculature that puts him far beyond the average human in terms of power, speed, and durability. However, his style doesn't utilize these incredible specs at all. Techniques like the eye poke and the heart jab rely on precision rather than raw power. Thus, the only thing Muteba gains from having a larger frame is being a bigger target for other strikers. This would make him more prone to the blitz strategy. Now that I have illustrated Muteba's strengths and weaknesses, I will be going over his matchups. But unlike the last video, I'll be covering only the quarterfinals and the second round in their entirety. I will only cover a few honorable mentions from the first round. Muteba Gizenga would be able to escape Cosmo's submission holds even with both his reflexes and foresight. Why? Fake outs. Pull a falcon and simply throw off the timing of your blows. This strategy would be effective against foresight because it completely falls off their radar, and as we know, strikes that come from outside someone's awareness are deadly. Muteba is a complete master of surprise and would know just how to mess with Cosmo. Muteba Gizenga may fall prey to the zone, but he could perceive it with his senses and will get out of whatever stranglehold Cosmo has to offer with his acupuncture. Muteba Gizenga most likely wins. Even consider Omega Cosmo's new striking capability, Muteba would be far more comfortable in an upright battle than when tied to the ground. Muteba Gizenga wins. Muteba Gizenga's hard jab will be able to reach Oma because that technique bypasses muscle entirely. Indestructible wouldn't be able to protect him, and going limp, as much as it is funny, would be even worse. Oma can't rely on Demon's Bane because Muteba's attacks don't inherently have a lot of power. Thus, a counter wouldn't quite make any sense. Oma's main defense against Muteba's techniques would be his redirection, and his speed would offer him more security. Oma would obviously consider these things as to come up with only one solution: Blitz. Start the match aggressively with flash fire footwork and send it into flashing steel, the quickest strike at Oma's disposal, or swimming swallow, the most unpredictable barring the secret techniques. However, Muteba with his senses would easily perceive Oma's footwork and could dodge these strikes with ease. This would be a match in which Oma should use the advance. Even a minimal amount will significantly increase his speed and torque, possibly enough to keep Muteba on the ropes. This wouldn't quite ensure Oma's victory because Muteba specializes in turning the tables of a match instantly, but one combination that would for sure lead to Muteba's downfall would be a combination between Fire Water and Ironbreaker Revolution. Fire Water is a swift transition between a dash and a tackle, which will definitely take Muteba off guard, and during that moment when Muteba is about to touch the ground, Oma would begin the motions for Ironbreaker Revolution and end the match. This would be even faster if Oma used the advance. Muteba Gizenga loses. Far and away the fastest character in the story, Muteba Gizenga would have a hard time with Mikazuchi due to Duration Style's emphasis on Blitz. However, the silver lining for Muteba here is that Lightning Flash, the most prominent technique of the Raisen style, is a very linear technique that Muteba could quite easily dodge. To catch more elusive opponents, Mikazuchi would use the Dreamwalking footwork to confuse opponents with his after images. But this trick wouldn't work on Muteba because of his senses. Even with these advantages for Muteba, he still wouldn't be able to utilize his techniques against Mikazuchi because of his speed. His speed offers him much security and initiative in the battle. Although I do not doubt for a second that Muteba would be able to figure out the right timing, he wouldn't have enough durability to maintain his fingers for long, because unless you're Kuroki Gensai, they're going to break. If Mikazuchi was to enter his love state, then Muteba would be unable to perceive Mikazuchi's speed and would be unable to react. Muteba Gizenga loses. Speaking of Kuroki Gensai, Muteba's techniques would bypass Kuroki's durability very easily, no doubt about it. But could Muteba actually land them? No. Kuroki Gensai, along with every other fighter, understands the threat that Muteba poses. Gensai will fight with a higher stance to guard against the eye poke. Also, Gensai shouldn't use Kaiwan Style's motionless foresight, because in the case with Cosmo, Muteba's surprise would directly counter it. A better process which Gensai should single out to counter Muteba's style should be pre-initiative. Why? Pre-initiative is determining the opponent's intent and then striking before they move. This would cripple any chance Muteba has of winning. With pre-initiative, Gensai could determine fake eye pokes or heart jabs from the real ones. With his element of surprise truly gone, Muteba Gizenga loses. Hatsumi-sen is a fighter who finds the right opportunity to bind his opponents with locks, then either incapacitates them with triple strikes, or throws them on their head with star drop, or 100 meetings throw. This is Hatsumi's two-pronged formula, and here's why it will not work against Muteba. The best condition for Hatsumi is when his opponent is advancing against him. This is because Hatsumi can better unleash his locks after his opponent has moved. To take out a note from Ario's book, this is the best description of post-initiative. This wouldn't work on Muteba because if one of Muteba's blows are complete fakes and Hatsumi responds to it, he will fall prey to the follow-up heart jab. Hatsumi could easily dodge the eye poke by shifting his knee, but the heart jab would still land because it is a strike to the chest. Another way Hatsumi could tackle this fight is to initiate one of his throws with counter initiative, essentially moving when the opponent moves. However, the heart jab would strike even deeper in this position. So either way, Hatsumi would be backed into a corner. Muteba Gizenga wins. Kanoe Ajito's formless style would put him at more risk of getting struck by Muteba's techniques. The main weakness of the formless style is the overabundance of choices that slow down his reactions, giving many opportunities for Muteba to land his fatal blows. Formlessness against Muteba would be complete suicide, but ever since setting away the abundance of the formless for better reflexes and only using a few blows, Kanoi Adzito has unlocked pre-initiative. By sensing Muteba's intent before he moves, Adzito can bypass the element of surprise and take Muteba out at any range with his strikes. So in conclusion, formless Adzito would get murdered while pre-initiative Adzito completely stomps. Now, for the second round. Okoye Seisu's reflexes are top notch, and paired with Hiyami's predictions, their combined skills results in an ability greater than Cosmo's half-baked foresight and possibly rivaling the Kaiwan style's motionless. As emphasized previously, foresight like this is very vulnerable to surprise tactics, and Muteba with his fake outs between the eye poke and the heart jab would be able to surpass their expectations. Therefore, Okoye would have to cede Hayami's support and fight Muteba alone. Okoye Seisu by himself would go berserk, and would be a very easy target for Muteba to neutralize. But if Okoye was composed, like his iteration Omega, then his defense would be harder to penetrate and he would advance forward always with his guard up, ready to throw down heavy blows. Solely with his reflexes, he could handle Muteba's fake outs, but when Muteba figures out Okoye's timing with his senses, game over. Muteba Gizenga wins. Base Curry Ryan, who purposefully doesn't use his family's techniques, would get low diffed. However, the unfair thing with this version of his character is that he still has the removal. This ability gives Rayon unprecedented power and speed. After all, it is the inspiration for the Nico style's advance. If Rayon used the removal, he would be fast enough to blitz Muteba, and with his extremely heavy blows, Muteba would be on the ropes. The only weakness with this strategy is that Rayon cannot maintain the removal forever, and when it ends, Muteba will absolutely destroy him. But before you absolutely pummel this video into the ground, I will consider techniques Rayon. The style of the Curry clan places emphasis on attacking the vital areas of the body like the head, throat, and chest. Apart from this, they are very knowledgeable about the styles of other martial arts schools and know how to defeat them. Yet, Muteba Gizenga doesn't use any other school of fighting and is far more effective at targeting sensitive regions of the body than even they are. So without the ability of pre-initiative, Muteba has Curry Ryan beat on techniques. Muteba Gizenga wins. Julius has the greatest physical specs in the series, bar none. Yet, in this case, it doesn't matter. Muteba's techniques can bypass Julius's impressively trained muscles. If Julius was less stubborn and decided to cut the power that surpasses technique nonsense, Julius would be easily capable of starting the match with God-killing drill and blitzing Muteba. But since Julius is Julius, he would be defeated. Muteba Gizenga wins. Same case with Julius Reinhold. Sopang has the hardest bones in the series, bar none. His style of rushing in and striking is simple, straightforward, and would be very effective against Muteba. But Sopang lacks the speed necessary to be safe from Muteba's strikes. He would still be vulnerable to them. Although his heart would be guarded, his eyes are free game. Muteba Gizenga wins. Kiryu Setsuna's blink and Nico-style footwork wouldn't work because of Muteba Gizenga's reliance on other senses. Thus, the lethality of Setsuna's Rakusasa palm, although undeniable, would be far more difficult to land without the blink. Although Muteba would have the advantage, his techniques are enough of a threat for Setsuna to be pushed towards activating the Fallen Demon. Fallen Demon is another secret technique of the Nico style that introduces the phenomenon of tachyphasia to combat, which is an easier way of attaining Kuroki Gensai's motionless foresight, except with less mastery and severe mental drawbacks. Due to the nature of Fallen Demon, Muteba's fake out would completely cripple it, enabling him to get the upper hand. Muteba Gizenga wins. Bando Yohei's arm whip reach and flexibility would absolutely be dreadful for Muteba Gizenga. Yohei's arm reach is deadly enough to keep Muteba from getting close, and even if he does get the opportunity to use his techniques, Yohei can just move his internal organs around to minimize damage. Muteba is completely countered by Bando Yohei's flexibility. Muteba Gizenga loses. Gowlang, although absolutely beastly at striking, would fall to Muteba Gizenga. With his experience, Gowlang has attained a very high level of foresight that enables him to outwit opponents like Kanoe Agito and much faster boxers like Carlos Medel. But since his opponent is Muteba Gizenga, this attribute will work against Gowlang and only makes him more vulnerable to Muteba's techniques. Muteba Gizenga wins. Now, before the Gowlang enthusiasts arrive at my house, I have some honorable mentions. Inabe Ryo would absolutely clap Muteba with his ranged throws, locks, and holds because Muteba cannot escape with his acupuncture. Hanafusa Hajime would kill him, no doubt, and Okubo Naoya gets destroyed, etc, etc. Let's talk about Purgatory. Carlos Medel is a lot quicker, elusive, and agile than Gowlang, making it possible for Medel to blitz Muteba because his speed gives him lots of security against Muteba's techniques. Although Muteba could withstand his jabs, his kicks are more powerful, and against a large guy like Muteba, Carlos can land more of them. Muteba Gizenga loses. The Falcon has applied the trickery and dirty tactics of ninjutsu to combat. Albert's ninja art is a style emphasized by fake-outs to trick his opponents and then dealing lethal damage with his carnivore-like claws. Although very interesting, a battle between two fighters who utilize surprise would favor the fighter who can outwit the other. However, this doesn't apply to this match because Muteba's techniques are much more lethal than Albert's. Even if Albert wins the contest of wits, Muteba can still survive and clap back. Yet, in all likelihood, Muteba, the more veteran mercenary, should get the jump on the Falcon. Muteba Gizenga wins. Same reason for Julius Rinhold. Toei Mudo is far too straightforward, and despite his outrageous build, he will fall to Muteba all the same. Muteba Gizenga wins. I have already covered this. Yumigahama has the range advantage, but his striking isn't enough of a threat to keep Muteba at bay for long. And once he gets close, Yumigahama has nothing in his arsenal that can stop him. Muteba Gizenga wins. Naidon has a great build, an expert foresight ability in the Eye of the Sky, and great wrestling. Muteba does well against people like this. And then you mention a cool foresight ability? Great! Naidon's more dead than before! Muteba Gizenga wins. As I said before with Kanoe Agito and his formlessness, this style of combat is suicide against Muteba. And then guess who's better at formless than Agito? This guy! Lucian should not use formlessness against Muteba. Therefore, his only remaining strategy would be to use the Wu Wang Fist. Although said to be very lethal, the Wu Wang Fist is insanely slow, and Muteba can exploit this weakness. Muteba Gizenga wins. A member of the Westward faction, he is the connector in which resides the personality of Wu Hei, the progenitor of the Curry clan, the Wu clan, and the Westward faction. With the Westward faction's Guhan, Alan Wu would be able to blitz Muteba Gizenga the same way that Ryan would. However, Alan Wu is much more of a berserker and is even more delusional than Ryan. Therefore, Muteba Gizenga's techniques would take effect all the same. Muteba Gizenga wins. Arashiyama Jiroda is an exceptionally skilled judo practitioner who has completely mastered the throw and responds with nothing but the throw, choosing to never strike under any circumstances. Although incredibly simple, his ability to disrupt the center of gravity completely evades the comprehension of individuals with the fist eye and even Kanoe Agito. Muteba, although skilled at facing grapplers, would be dumbfounded and impressed by his simplicity. Arashiyama is one of those special characters who simply cannot be surprised because they will always react with the same technique. This is proven because Arashiyama defeated the real Yuzaki Muman. Although this version wouldn't be the imposter, the real one used the same techniques and thus the same trickery to defeat high-class opponents. Because Arashiyama defeated a fighter whose main strategy revolves around surprise, it is safe to say Arashiyama wins. Muteba Gizenga loses. Muteba Gizenga is worth every ounce of clout given to him by the Curry clan and then some. Taking him down means sacrificing something in return. For Wakatsuki Takeshi, It meant sacrificing the vision in his right eye. Muteba Gizenga is the most strategic fighter in the series, whose surprise attacks are both practical and serve as a genuine threat for the biggest, smartest, and strongest combatants in the verse. Although Muteba is in a perfectly good spot, there are other things he could do to become even stronger. 1. Set the pounds and become as elusive as Carlos Medel. Although you would lose power and durability, it will enhance Muteba's speed and precision, enabling him to better utilize his techniques. 2. Muteba should incorporate the Crescent Moon Kick from Rokusen Kaikan Karate. It would go in line with his style of combat and would be another lethal card that Muteba could use in combat. 3. If he really wanted to enter the Kengen matches as a fighter, Muteba should get rid of the mercenary attitude and fight to the fullest because surrendering is cringe. Hi. It's the cyborg whale named after Italian cheese and a dessert item. Thanks for watching. This video took me around a week, so expect stuff like this to come out weekly. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you subscribed. That would help me out a lot. The new plan will be to analyze Purgatory Gladiator starting with Arashiyama Tsuruta. Stay tuned for that, and as always, have a good day.